Hello and welcome to this week's Charity Digital News webinar. My name is Chris Hall. I'm the marketing manager here at Charity Digital News and I'm delighted to be with you this week. To those of you who've joined us before, it's great to have you back. And to our first time listeners, we hope today's session will be the first of many with the Charity Digital community. For first timers, here's a quick overview of what we do at Charity Digital News. Charity Digital News is part of Tech Trust, a charity focused on helping other charities to maximise their impact through the use of digital technology. As part of our offerings, we have saved charities over £225 million through TT Exchange, a programme that gives charities access to discounted and donated tech products like Microsoft Office 365. We also have our own white labelled email platform, TT Mail, that we offer to charities at a discounted rate. It's based on the .mailer technology and offers a fresh alternative to solving the pain points of MailChimp and other platforms. We also host the Charity Digital Jobs platform, which looks to connect charities to top digital recruits looking for their next role. And of course, there's Charity Digital News, an online education platform that aims to inspire charities to adopt digital tech through articles, events, and webinars. Today marks the start of our month-long Microsoft Skills webinar series, where each week in April we'll be joined by Microsoft tech gurus to showcase all hacking tech tips and tricks that are available to your charity. We're kicking off proceedings here today in Reading with the Microsoft CSR team, with our first webinar, Improving Employee Collaboration in the Cloud, where we'll be exploring how seamless collaboration in the new suite of Office 365 applications is made possible by the power of the cloud. As always, we'll be running a Q&A segment at the end of each session. If you're on desktop, you can do so by hitting the question mark in the purple speech bubble in the top right of your screen. And if you're on your phone or tablet, you can find the white Q&A speech bubble also on the top right of your screen. We'll also be making a recording of the webinar available on our site, charitydigitalnews.co.uk, and we aim to share this with you and any other resources that come from the webinar within a week. So that's enough from me for now. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Eve Joseph, Responsibility Manager here at Microsoft. Welcome, Eve.
Brilliant. Thank you for the introduction, Chris, and for the partnership. We really love working with the Tech Trust. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Eve Joseph, and I'm one of the Corporate Social Responsibility Leads here at Microsoft UK. And I'm delighted to welcome you all to our first in the series of Digital Skills webinars. A bit about us. So the picture on your screen here are the Charity Digital Champions volunteer team. And with the wider social impact team here in the UK, their mission is to create opportunities for our talented employees to share their expertise with charities, young people, schools, community groups, and a few pictures you can see on the screen now. But I often get asked whenever I'm out and about in this space and talking to you, like, why do we do this work? And it's quite simple. It's baked into our company's mission, which you can see here, to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we do mean everyone. At Microsoft, we believe technology is a powerful force for improving people's lives, but we also are cognizant of the fact that this can only happen when everyone has access to it. And with the advancement, we don't want to leave anyone behind. And this is where I see some amazing synergy between the work you do as charities to help solve some of the most pressing societal needs and the platform we give you technologically to help you do your best work. And it's reasons like that that I kind of get out of bed every day and come and do the work that I do. But just to be clear, like, this isn't just Microsoft or the Technology Trust's view. Check out this finding, which is from the Lloyds Bank Digital Business Index from 2016. And it says charities that are more digitally mature are 28% more likely to report an increase in funding than those that aren't. And that's 28%, right? That is a significant amount of money, which is waiting to be given to charities like yourselves to enable you to increase your reach, deliver more research, find more volunteers, whatever your end goal is. I'm sure a 28% increase in funding would be welcomed. And just to be clear, when we say digital or we say technology, we don't simply mean like having a Facebook page or being active on Twitter or having your board of trustees on a WhatsApp group. So much more than that. And I genuinely hope that this series either inspires you to think of a new way of working or simply empowers you to keep driving your digital agenda within your charity and to help amplify why all of this is so important. And if you want some inspiration, I would urge you to check out this case study, which is from cystic fibrosis. The link is on the screen now. It's just aka.ms/cystic fibrosis. They've got a great story about how they've been using Skype to improve their digital capability within their organization. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce and hand over now to Grace and Graham, who are our awesome tech gurus, to take you through today's content. Make sure you get your questions in by hitting the button, and we'll come back for Q&A at the end of the session. So I'm literally going to hand the microphone over to Grace and Graham.
Thanks so much. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today and taking the time out of your day to learn more about how you can use Office 365 to better run not just your life, but also how your charity works and operations. So my name is Grace Picking. I'm a business productivity technical consultant here at Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft for, it's actually my 2-year anniversary this week, so go me. And I've been working as a consultant for around about 8 years within digital transformation. And actually, I learned a lot of my core skills for being a consultant from working in a charity shop for 2.5 years when I was around 15 years old. And I also do ongoing charity work, not just within technology and helping empower those that can't support themselves in terms of getting online and using technology in their day-to-day lives, but also in terms of getting women interested in technology and science and engineering. So my day-to-day work involves empowering organisations like you within Office 365 to unlock some of their technical blockers. So I am a techie and I'm an engineer at heart, and I'm going to be helping you today walk through some of those scenarios. And I'm also with Graham. Over to you, Graham.
Thank you, Grace. I'm Graham Hosking, so I'm a collaboration specialist here at Microsoft. I've been here for about 3.5 years now. Prior to Microsoft, I also worked for a global charity. I was there for about 4 years and actually started there as an exchange specialist, would you believe? We needed to build out an exchange system. But having spoken to Eve back in the day, I found out that Microsoft had this wonderful set of tools that allowed us to be able to scale and actually give the tools to the end people that needed it really, really easily. So I have all of that background behind me as well. Day to day, I actually look after finance insurance today and going through kind of the same steps. Again, they have very legacy systems that they haven't upgraded for years, but bringing them on the path to a new set of tools to be more productive going forward. So the agenda for the day, for the next sort of 40 minutes or so, we're going to talk about different personas, what sort of tools you have available to you to become more productive. And obviously, we have different people in different departments that work in different ways as well. So what are the real use cases and how do they work differently across the entire organization or across the charity? And it doesn't really matter if you're kind of 5 people in a charity versus, tens of hundreds. Let's really show you how that works. And then we really encourage you to ask any questions in the Q&A within the chat as well, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Okay. So let's talk about different personas. So at a very high level view, let's have a look at the different people we need really within the organization or the charity to be more productive and how they interact with each other on a day-to-day basis. So many charities have people that don't work necessarily in an office, but they are connected via their personal mobile phone or a mobile phone that's been given to them. And they need a way of accessing information and different communications to gain access and to find information really easily, but also work on common documents that people in the office access as well. So giving them those capabilities. And then there's really these trustees, so people that work in the charity or work for the charity on an ad hoc basis, people that really don't typically have their own identity within the charity, but need to be informed and stay connected with them. So actually bringing them securely into this environment is what we're going to talk to today. These are some of the use cases. If you're not used to this kind of technical term, use cases, it's going through different scenarios about how people work. So as we know, there's multiple people and roles that actually make up an organization. And as I mentioned, charities ranging from 5 people up to thousands of people, everyone works in different ways, or they wear different hats throughout the day, such as, client support people. So these are the people that are kind of front of line. They're actually working with your clients or your customers. They kind of maybe sitting at the desk answering a phone, or be physically out on the road meeting with people. And the key things for them is to access is really a communications platform, maybe to access different specialists within the charity to get information, or they just need to do basic things like see what their next shift is. We have people in finance that need to access data really quickly, maybe very large spreadsheets that gives them financial information, but also they need to make sure there aren't multiple versions of these files floating around as well. They need one concise way of finding the document and being able to work on that as and when they need. For the exec team, so the board level people actually run the organization. They're always out of the office, maybe meeting new clients and new relationships, and they're always connected on their mobile phone. But they also need to be kept engaged with the organization to allow a two-way communication back to their leadership team and their employees as well. They need to access information on the go and wherever they are, even if they're 30,000 foot in the air on a plane, for example. They may still need to access offline data, which is a must. And we need to make sure that data, regardless of what device it actually sits on, is backed up and secured as well. Project managers, they obviously need to manage people and the projects they're in charge of, but they need to understand what tasks are outstanding or what's in progress. And they need an easy way to create and upload project progress reports. So they not only just need to collaborate with their initial project teams, but also people within inside the business. The ability to share information with both parties is key. So just a takeaway of this really is the importance of these examples is everyone works in different ways, but the aim is to understand the tools that are available to you, and then you choose what of those tools makes you productive. And obviously making you more efficient and being able to achieve more means less concentration on where things are and more impact on the goals for your charity or organization. Again, this is a bit of a techie slide, but we wanted to bring this up. It really shows just a subset of tools that you might be using today. And we talked about how different people work in different ways. So everyone's used to using email, right? So we use Outlook as a client in order to access that. We're just going to go through just some high-level tools that are available to your charity. But Office 365 is a comprehensive productivity suite of tools that was born in the cloud. And this incorporates kind of the latest innovation, get my words out, sorry, across both productivity and security. So all of the different tools you see here are overlaid on top of security and compliance. We have this thing called the Microsoft Graph, which is taking all of that intelligence and then bubbling that up as insights on how you're working or how to be more productive. And then 365 Groups is a way for your staff, your workforce to be able to create those secure groups and not have to rely on IT or an outsourced IT in order to do that. So Grace is going to walk us through some of those tools.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit biased because I'm a SharePoint and OneDrive consultant to the core. But with SharePoint and OneDrive, it continues to evolve and is the lead in the industry in terms of content management. So SharePoint Team Sites connects you and your team to the content, information, and apps that you rely on every day. So for example, you can use a team site to store and collaborate on files or to create and manage lists of information. On a team site homepage, you can view links to important team files apps, and web pages, as well as seeing recent site activity in your activity feed. So when Office files and other files are stored in SharePoint or OneDrive, several critical features are enabled, including co-authoring, one of my personal faves, autosave, and the activity feed. So cloud storage also eliminates document versioning, which we're going to demo a bit later, or getting locked out of a document if someone else is editing. Now, with OneDrive Files on Demand, a new feature, which is rolling out in Windows 10 from the full Creators Update, this takes it a step further, which lets you work with all your files directly in File Explorer that we're all used to, without taking any storage actually on your device, so it frees up that space. So this powerful new user experience removes adoption hurdles so that you can migrate files from your old school home directories and map drives to Office 365. And users can continue to work with files seamlessly in File Explorer and in any app on Windows 10 or in Mac. Now, with offline access, like me, I travel quite a lot. I'm always in the field. Sometimes I don't have a very good internet connection, if any at all. So with offline access, I can continue to work on documents and merge those changes with other cloud documents once you come back online. With communication sites in SharePoint, it allows people to create and share recurring updates beyond email. When you create a page on a communication site, you can embed documents and videos and dynamically pull in real-time data from across Office 365, not just content in SharePoint, including those documents, but also Power BI reports, Microsoft Stream videos, and Yammer discussions. The resulting page is a rich and dynamic site, and the page persists across that site. So people can refer to it easily, even as the membership of your team changes, so new members can more easily get up to speed. So we've also recently added to the stack Microsoft Teams, and we're bringing in more capabilities and functionality, sometimes every week. So we've recently added communications capabilities within Teams, including voice and video experiences, all powered by Skype. Now you can chat, call, and have meetings with everyone in your team, whether they're inside your organization or an outside partner. So team members can engage in private one-to-one chats or in group conversations that are visible to the entire team. So this modern conversation experience supports persistent, threaded chats to keep everybody engaged. We've also got team conversations which are open by default, and of course there is the ability for private discussions too, including my personal favourite, very good emojis, memes, and other fun graphics in your messages, which allows team culture to shine throughout. You also have the capability to host meetings like we're having this, which is a live version of a Teams meeting. You can have your internal Teams meeting with the persistent chat, sharing screens, all that fun stuff. And during that meeting, you can also collaborate on documents and take notes. So on top of hosting those meetings, you can, if you choose to, also have a dedicated phone number and advanced call features such as blind and consultative transfer, for example, if you're on the help desk or support line, as well as delegation and support for emergency outbound calls. So Microsoft Teams is more than a productivity suite, but it is your single hub for teamwork, and it also brings Office apps. And every group is unique, so you can build on top of that. If you're not just using Office apps, you can add in tabs and connectors to first or third-party applications, so you can still work together in one area. So next up, we're going to talk about Yammer, your enterprise social network.
Thank you, Grace. So everybody wants to empower their employees, right? And where I come from a charity perspective, I remember having to look at spreadsheets and look at people in different countries. And by the time I actually found that person, they'd left the organization. Oh. So using a set of tools that we have here, we can actually create a new and modern culture of collaboration, which is organizational wide. It means for those people that you don't work with on a day-to-day basis, but there's still skills, either in the UK or if you're a global organization, that you can actually tap into. So we can ask questions and really have a two-way communication. Actually crossing those organizational boundaries means that We can improve engagement across the entire company and actually bring those disparate silos together and actually unite around your charity's priorities then. Lastly, another tool to note is the ability to record and capture meetings. I know Grace talked about Teams, but it means that when you're having a meeting and not everyone can necessarily make that meeting, we can choose to have those meetings recorded and have those stored in a central place so they can be reviewed later. That means that we can add in automatic transcription, so having closed captions, for either people that are hard of hearing, for example, or don't even have speakers on their devices. They can still see the vital communications there. This tool can also be used for public broadcasts, much like we're doing today, or even internal town halls are just secured to your charity as well. And these can scale right up to about 10,000 attendees, and that'll work across multiple devices and form factors on a modern browser as well. And there's still a lot of organizations, unfortunately, are living in a classic or traditional world of IT, where software and tools are still manually updated on devices, and sometimes by the time they're installed, they're way out of date anyway, maybe spanning a decade. Oh dear. Lots of customers I speak to are still using Word 2010, for example, which is nearly 10 years old. And sometimes it's just based on the cost of upgrading that software every year or every few years. This also isn't great for productivity because no one these days really works on a single device. We switch between multiple different devices, whether it's your mobile, your tablet, your desktop. The software really needs to be now more user-focused. This means that your staff can work from wherever and whatever device they are to be most productive. Because the tools are now fully managed from the cloud, it also means new updates are automatically streamed down to those devices, so they're transparent to your workforce. Much like apps on your mobile phone today, they're always up to date and they're all self-service. And can you really imagine using your favorite mobile app, which has never been updated for 10 years?
I can't.
Nor me. So with that, let's jump to a demo. So we've got a bit of a scenario today. So we've got 4 people that are in our demo. So we've got myself, Graham, who's the marketing exec, and I'm on my mobile phone, I'm out and about. I'm actually just about to jump on a plane, which I'll get to in a second. And Grace, who's the marketing director, she's actually working from the office today on a desktop. We have Megan, she's a trustee who is outside of our organization that we're also having a conversation with as well. And Dan, who's another trustee who is working on ad hoc, but he's using his Gmail account or his Yahoo address. Can't remember. One of those.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to the demo. Now, this is truly live. Okay, so we're risking it all. We're putting it all up in front of you. So hopefully now you should all be able to see my screen. So I'm logged in as Grace, just so I don't forget my name. And in this scenario, I am, here we go. I am the marketing director. And I've just had a notification, as you can see in the top right-hand corner here, to say that Graham has @mentioned me, which is something that's common across all social media platforms. @mentioning is not a new feature, but we do have it in Teams, so you know. And you can see here, I've got the pop-up or toaster notification in the bottom right-hand corner to say he's also liked a message. So Graham and I work together in this Microsoft team as part of the marketing department. And here you can see within Teams, I'm a member of a number of different Microsoft teams. Now, Graham and I, alongside Dan and Megan, are working on this new marketing campaign. So within this team, we have different channels to be able to work on different topics. Now, specifically for today's demonstration, Graham and I are working on the spring marketing campaign, which we need to get out of the door as quickly as we can. Now, I'm based in the office and I'm currently using my desktop, but Graham is always out and about and he is imminently about to get on a plane. So originally Graham has created the deck and he wants me to have a look at and review it. So what he's done is in this persistent chat, he's commented, posted the file, which is saved to the team in SharePoint behind the scenes. But apart from this, you can also see at the top, we've got the files tab. So all of your files are saved in the same place, which for You SharePoint dons amongst you will know that it's a team site in SharePoint. And then I've also got the campaigns notes tab, which is just a OneNote, which is shared amongst everybody in the team, so we can work on meeting minutes wherever we are and keep up to date, for example, if we happen to miss a meeting and need to get the actions. Within this team, as part of the wider plan, I also have a planner. And this means I can add activities and tasks, assign them to people and check my progress. Now, back to the matter at hand. I need to get this marketing deck out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this PowerPoint file. Now, what you'll notice is I haven't left Teams. So I've opened this PowerPoint file, and what I'm able to see on the right-hand side is the chat thread, which is persistent, that me and Graham have previously discussed. So you can see here, I just want to view and click through and review. Now, if I want to really easily, within one click, I can go in and edit. And now, using PowerPoint Online within Teams, I can click through and I can edit this file. Now, what you'll see here on the left-hand side is an icon or an avatar for Graham. So Graham and I are working on this document at the same time, and that is called co-authoring. So you can see here, the sections are highlighted and that they're locked out. So I can't go in and amend that section or overtype the area that Graham is working on. Now, I want to open this in full PowerPoint. So because I'm working on my desktop, what I can do is I can actually just choose to open this directly in PowerPoint. So you can see here, I'm now in your usual Office Pro Plus for PowerPoint, and I can still see co-authoring. So what I'm doing is I'm reviewing this on behalf of marketing, and I'm not quite happy with this. And so I might mention and ask Graham to change something or add some comments. So I can do that by either going to insert at the top here and pressing comment. And so it's picked up who I am, and I can also use @mentions here. So I can @mention Graham and I can say, hey, I'm not sure about this. Lost the mouse, odd sort. Hey, I'm not sure about this. Is this the latest? Okay, so I can post that and I can carry on. Now I'm going to go back and I actually want to close that. And I'm happy with that co-authoring. I'm just waiting for Graham to respond. So Graham's out and about. So I've shown you how to co-author and shown you the @mentioning. So now it's time to have a look at Graham's experience. So Graham's on the run and he's had a notification on his mobile app.
Excellent. So I'm actually at the airport waiting for my plane. So what I'm going to do here is just open up my Apple device. And you can see I've got the similar look and feel of Teams on my mobile device. And I've got the team here. I can see that Grace has mentioned me to have a look at this marketing campaign, and that's great. I can open that up. I've got a view-only view of that document, but also I can click on the edit button at the very top here and open up the PowerPoint app. So again, I can see that there's some edits here that I need to do. I'm just going to head to slide 2 and then edit the text. And I can see that there's going to be some additional data that I need to add. And also, because I'm online, I can see that Grace is also editing this single document at the same time as me. And we can have up to 99 people actually editing this one document. We don't have to share different versions anymore. So that's great. That looks fine to me. What I'm going to do is my boarding has just been called. So what I'll need to do now is actually go in and just put on my airplane mode. So now I'm not connected to any Wi-Fi or any 3G or anything like that. You'll notice those documents are actually saved securely to my device as well. So I can go back into Teams, open up that document, click OK there. And all of those changes that I'm actually making while I'm offline are automatically synced back to the central server. So you'll notice that across our platform, there is no save button anymore. It's actually doing that for me. And in the unlikely event of them being any kind of conflicts in those changes, I'll actually get those resolutions surfaced up to me, and I can choose whether I merge or overwrite those changes as well.
So that's fabulous. And I promise you, we're not magicians. Yeah, that wasn't magic. That was live happening right now. And so Graham's now made his updates, and he's he's on the plane and he's working offline. And it's the end of the day. So I want to leave. So I've got my desktop app and I've shut down and I've actually moved over to my laptop. And what I want to do is, I've had a long day, but I just want to sanity check these slides. And I get the tube to and from work. So everybody knows that the Wi-Fi connection on the tube is sporadic at the best of times, and you've probably got 2 minutes between stops where you've got no connectivity. So what I can do is, behind the scenes, all teams create a SharePoint site. And so this feature is, I'm going to show you OneDrive for Business Sync client. So in SharePoint, I can just open the full document library and I can choose to sync this entire folder. What that means is I can keep an offline copy on my laptop and be working on it when I'm on the tube and reviewing it. So that when I next come online, much like with Graham being 30,000 foot in the air, I'm 100 foot below ground in central London, slightly less glamorous. I can still work on this document, and you can do that just by pressing the sync button. What's going to happen is it's then just going to open File Explorer, theoretically. Here we go, open OneDrive for Business, and then what you'll see, I open the File Explorer. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see here, as I move it over.
And this is great, right? Because I don't have the latest and greatest laptop, so I don't want to fill my laptop with like a load of files I don't necessarily need straight away. So I can choose what files actually get synced down to my device. And it's transparent again, right? So when I am online, I can just double click on those files. It'll download and open it automatically. Or if I want to save some files, I can actually right click and then choose to just clear that storage out as well. So as true live demos, unfortunately, we can't show you the other view, but yeah, I think we should move on.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got off the tube now. I'm happy with my changes. What now? So Graham and I are happy, but actually, because the third person that we work with isn't in the organisation, I want to email them a copy of this file. Now, previously, what I would have done was I would have saved it as an attachment, opened an old school snail mail and sent it over to Megan or Dan, my two externals that I work with. Now, that is no longer the case. That is a thing of the past. What I can actually do is I can, within the file here at the top, you'll notice in PowerPoint, get my mouse back here, you can click share. Now with sharing, you have several options. So you can choose if your organization wants to, for the whole of Office 365, SharePoint or OneDrive, choose to allow someone to share that document with anyone. Now what that basically means is you're publishing it on the internet. So if you wanted to, you could choose anyone with a link. That would then provide you with a nice looking URL, and you could send that out in, say, an email roundup publicly. And that means that you would have one source of the truth. You can just update that file without having to update that link. Also, if you wanted to share this document with everybody in the organization, you could choose people in your organization with this link. And then that means, again, you could have a single source of truth, and you could untick the allow editing. So everybody in the organisation could be up to speed with the spring marketing campaign, whilst Graham and I and the rest of the team can still behind the scenes change the version and edit it and publish it, or roll it back if we need to, which we'll go to in a sec. Lastly, if you just want to create a link for people that are already in the team that have access, you can. Or in the case of what I want to do now, you can click specific people. And I want to specifically add in Dan. So I want to send an email to Dan with a link to this document so that he can view it. So I can just type in dan@yahoo.com. There we go. I'm going to add a message. Hiya, Dan. This is the signed off copy of the plan. What are your thoughts? And you can choose Choose to either send it like this, which will send what we refer to as an out of the box or a standard email from SharePoint to Dan with a link to that document so that he can open it as Dan when he logs in with his Yahoo account. Or if you want to send a more personalized email, you can click copy link and then paste that into either an IM chat window, such as a persistent chat in Teams, or you might send it over in a hyperlink as an email. So once I've done that, I click send and off we go. Okay, so now Dan's got a copy, but that's just that one copy of the file. I also work very regularly with Megan. Now, Megan is somebody who's a member of the extended team, but she doesn't work for our organisation because she's more of a freelance basis and we don't want to have an account for her. So what I can do is I can actually invite Megan in as a guest to the whole team. So because we work with Megan across the whole of the marketing campaign, I can within Teams here, go to add a member. I could type in Megan B at Microsoft.com, Microsoft, add that person as a guest, and there we go. So that email will then send over. Megan will get an email. Again, it's a template that will say, you have been invited to the new marketing campaign team. Click here to register and open. And you can see there's a nice message there. And when Megan joins as a guest, she'll also be able to see all of the persistent chat and have access to all of the files, so you can work with them seamlessly. Now, what I've noticed is once I've got home and I reviewed what Dan, and I'm relaxed in the evening and Dan's got this email and Dan's in a different time zone to me. Dan behind the scenes, because he's not a guest, he's dropped me an email to say he's made some changes. But actually, on reviewing them, I don't think they're right. So what I need to do is I need to roll back the entire document to how me and Graham perfected it, because I'm not convinced with Dan's spelling, for example. So what I can do is at the top here, I've got the latest version of the document, and within the drop down, not only can I change the file name if I needed to, I can also go to version history. Now on the right hand side, you can see all of these versions from where we've been working really hard to get this document up to scratch. And I can choose to roll back to the last version, which I was happy with, which was Graham's version before he go jetting around the world. And what it's going to do now is it's going to open that version. I can look at it, I can review it, make sure that I'm happy that that is the version I want to roll back to. And you can see here, you get this ribbon, which is, telling me in all caps, don't forget, that this is not the latest version, this is a previous version. And with one click, I can hit restore and it will roll back that entire file to the previous version. Now I'm happy with this document. I've reviewed it. I've even rolled it back to an extent. What I want to do is I want to send it for approval. Now, a new feature in Office 365 that works really nicely with SharePoint is Flow. So Microsoft Flow is our workflow app within Office 365. Now, you don't have to be a developer. Quite frankly, you don't even have to be that logical to be able to create these flows. What I want to do is I'm going to choose this document here. And what I can do is, if you have a look at the top, I can press the epsilon and there is a flow icon here. Now I want to request manager approval for selected file. So now it's going to give me that flow and I can choose who I want to send it to for an approval. They will get an email asking them to review it for approval. So for example, within mine and Graham's team, we have a bigger chief marketing officer. So I want it to go to her. So I would continue, set up that flow and send that to her for approval. The other option is with the internal link, you could then also put it on the intranet based on SharePoint Online in a communication site if you wanted to. So now, you know what, I'm pretty happy with that. My document's out there, I've had it reviewed, I've shared it with the appropriate people. I'm a very happy Grace for marketing.
Okay, so just to recap what we've shown you in that demo, we've shown a number of different things, multiple people within and outside the organization actually collaborating on one file. You're able to keep that one file within your organization, not having to share that out and lose that file outside. It means that we can actually go back into different versions of that file really, really easily. We don't need IT to be involved. and sharing links out of those files. Instead of copying that one file and then sending it out, we have full control over that as well. So I've just landed and I'm just going to hand over to Eve.
Wow. Thank you, Grace and Graham. There was a lot to take in, and I'm really glad that it was recorded. So before we head into a Q&A, I thought I would share some further resources to help you continue this conversation, as I guess get asked all the time, well, what next? How do I find out more information? These links have information on our donations and our discount offer for charities. The second one is a useful white paper to help you understand some of the context around tech more generically and how technology and charities come together. And then finally, our help desk for any queries you might have around our technology offers or our future kind of work in this area, then you can get in touch with us on those links. I also wanted to draw your attention to the charity digital code, and if you haven't already come across it, this is a really fab resource. It's been designed by many of your charity thought leaders, so Akivo, the Small Charities Coalition, the NCVO, the Charity Commission themselves, and the Tech Trust. I think there are about 171 charity representatives altogether. It's the UK's first digital code of practice for charities and has been created to provide really practical advice on improving your charity's digital capabilities. It is well worth exploring and also championing within your own organisations if you haven't already. So just a quick Bing or Google search and you will find the necessary information. So finally, what's coming up next? Well, first, there'll be a feedback form that will be sent to you by the Tech Trust about this webinar. Please do take some time to fill it in. We do read every comment and every piece of feedback, and that is the only way we can gauge if we've kind of delivered a useful session and whether you're finding these sessions useful or not. So please do take 5 minutes to let us know your thoughts. And then secondly, we have 3 more webinars in this series that you can see on the screen. And I'm sure the Tech Trust will be sending out more information on how you can register for the further 3 webinars, which will also be delivered by some of our amazing Microsoft UK tech specialists. So yeah, I think now it's Chris, hand over to Chris and find out how we're doing on the Q&A. I think we've got about 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Thank you, Eve. Yeah, before we dive into the questions, if you are willing to publish one, please remember to hit that button in the top right corner of your screen. I think it's a different color on phone than it is to desktop. I think it's purple on phone, well, vice versa, and white on desktop or vice versa. But please get your questions into us. I think the best place to start is with this one from an anonymous user. We've gone through a lot of tools today, a lot of apps. Do charities need to deploy all of them, or is there a best suite that they should be employing, or should bigger or smaller charities be employing certain ones?
That's a great question, and it's something I get asked quite a lot in the field. I don't know about you, Graham, but what I would recommend is having a look at, to start with, what you're trying to achieve and what you've already got. And then align those to some of the things that you have in the suite. Now you can turn, things off and on, but I'd recommend kind of as you go in, try not to turn off for fear of having them out there. SharePoint is so, inherent with all of Office 365 in terms of document storage, as well as OneDrive for Business for personal cloud storage. So things like that, the key apps, Office Online, an Exchange Online, you want to get all the benefits of those, and you can configure those depending on what you want to achieve out of those apps. The external sharing, the being able to collaborate, how people can access it from different devices, you can also configure. In terms of that, I'd recommend looking at the support documents. So that's support.office.com or docs.office.com if you're an IT admin, to look at those configuration aspects. But yeah, some of that matching, reviewing the capabilities and aligning it to what you're trying to achieve, and how much change your organization is going through.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I was just, last thing to mention really is there's some things that people are used to within email and Outlook, for example, where we're making very innovative, I can say that word now, changes to Outlook, for example. So when you're writing an email and say, hey, please see attached, and Outlook has noticed that you haven't attached anything, it'll actually prompt you, did you mean to attach something? And then when you go to attach, it'll actually show you recent documents. Because normally, right, you're working on a document that you're going to eventually send to someone. But instead of attaching that email as a physical attachment, we can send them a secure link to that as well. So don't be afraid on just reviewing the basics and then look at more of the cool things around Teams and working in different ways going forward.
Thank you both. Sticking on the theme of apps, we've had a question here from another anonymous user. What is the difference between channels on Microsoft Teams and features on Yammer?
Yeah, great question. So we're going back to kind of what tool to use when, right? So we have this whole concept of inner and outer loop. So I predominantly work within Microsoft Teams about 99% of my day. So that's where I go to get work done. So it's my initial teams I work with, but even teams that span the globe, or just a project that we've set up for 2 weeks or so. So that's the place you go to get work done for the people that you work with. Whereas Yammer is reaching out to the organization and tapping into those skills for people that you don't work with on a daily basis. So it might be I'm stuck on a particular problem, my team doesn't know the answer either, so I turn to Yammer to be able to find that answer. But also we use Yammer to be able to have that two-way communication with our CEO, for example.
Yep.
And we can feed ideas directly to them, where I've seen traditionally in the past, organizations like to send an email out to everyone, but how do you know that people are reading it? How do you get feedback from those emails? So those are the key differences between Yammer and groups and channels within Teams.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note the difference there. So Yammer is for that open conversation, although you can have private groups where you want to break down those silos of working in your organization. I mean, when I first started working at Microsoft, there's almost 250,000 people that work here. It is completely impossible to know everyone or who to speak to. So I would just be searching on Yammer. And I would be searching for keywords, for groups, for where people have asked the same question. And I've seen that, and I've already found my results and I can just like that. And it saved me having to ask it again and again. Whereas in Teams, that's more of my inner loop. That's my, my regional engineering team, my local team that I can work with in those individual channels to have that ongoing conversation that's private to me and isn't publicized on, say, such a platform like Yammer that everybody can search. So yeah, that's the differences.
Thank you. Next question. I'm going to try and frame this in a slightly unbiased way. How does SharePoint compare against other platforms out there like Dropbox and stuff like that?
Great question. So in terms of some of the other cloud storage providers that are out there at the minute, and there is lots, other providers are available, but from a Microsoft perspective, SharePoint has been around for a really long time, like a really, really long time, before it was even called SharePoint. And, I can throw all the stats at you about how it's a quadrant leader and all these people have done this research, but from the charity sphere, it's included in your Office 365 subscription. So already you're paying for it, so you might as well use it. You get the Enterprise Security and Mobility Suite wrapper around that as well. So you can do things like audit all of the actions. You can maintain that security. Of course, Microsoft are one of in fact, the only cloud provider out there that have pretty much every single ISO. In fact, I'm pretty sure new certificates have been created to challenge cloud providers, and Microsoft are the only ones that got them from a security point of view. As well as being, we've got global data centers. We have, a 99.999% financially backed SLA in terms of uptime. And obviously I am biased, but having used other cloud providers, for me, I just think all of the features and functionalities and the rate at which it's being changed and developed in terms of what's going on in the rest of the world for UX and accessibility, and what people expect from CMS, that's where I think Microsoft and SharePoint is definitely the front runner. Got anything to add?
Yeah, just I would say it's the interoperability between the entire tool set that we have.
Oh yeah.
So the integration, if you want to upload a file that you're personally working on, our tool for that is OneDrive. But if you jump into Outlook, for example, you can access that very, very easily. Equally, if you've got files stored within SharePoint, which is more of a shared space within the organization or within specific teams, we have that deep integration and that deep kind of user-centric search capabilities. No longer you're looking for a specific file, but you're actually looking at the people who are creating those files as well. So it's a different view and a different take from other providers as well.
Yeah.
And I'll just add one final one to that, onto Grace's point about if you're paying for it, you may as well use it. On the link that I shared earlier, from an Office 365 perspective for charities, we actually donate that E1 SKU. So the kind of first entry level into Office 365, where you get access to all of these tools that the guys have been talking about today, it's free to use. It's a donation to you as a charity. So the cost of obviously deploying that will have to be taken up by you as a charity, but actually the cost of the software is as a donation for E1. So yeah, there's definitely some reasons why, you know, using SharePoint versus Dropbox in that kind of scenario is probably quite positive.
Super, thank you. We've got another scenario question here from an anonymous user. We want to move from a network drive to the OneDrive. In the network drive, we occasionally have difficulties with searching or finding documents. Does it work better in OneDrive?
Yes. I can say that with a lot of confidence. So when you move your files from an old school network drive, whatever it is, or if it's, you know, just my computer, when you move into the cloud, we have this thing called the Microsoft Graph, which underpins everything in Office 365. And it's a artificial intelligence suite, which kind of not only is looking at your actions, it's also performing that search. So you can use something like Delve, which will use your the graph underneath it. And based on what search term you use compared to your peer, you'll get different search results that are completely personalized and customized for you. And that graph runs across Office 365, whether you're searching from, you know, within your recent documents, whether you're using it within the SharePoint Search Center, whether you're using it from Delve, even now to recommending documents if you just click into OneDrive based on things that you're working on, not just recently, but where your colleagues were working on files, say in your team. It's a lot better. And, you know, and just in terms of the performance and how smart it is, it's a lot better. Can't big it up enough.
Thank you. Another question about security from an anonymous user. Is it correct that once a guest has been invited into a team, they have access to everything within that team? Is there any way to restrict this?
Another fantastic question from anonymous. That person has been asking loads of questions. So when you invite a guest into one particular team, yes, that guest can access all of the files that are saved in that SharePoint site behind the scenes, as well as access to that persistent chat and some of the tabs that you add, depending on what they are. Now, they can't access the shared mailbox that's attached to that team. They can't access the shared calendar, but they can access the planner plan. So again, if you have a look at our support docs, it outlines what a guest can do versus a member of a team. Now, in terms of kind of bringing that in Teams, we do have on the roadmap private channels. So within those private channels within one team, what you could do is change the membership. So only members and not guests have permission to access that channel. So that's one option that's coming in the future. But for right now, because those files are still in SharePoint, if you did need to, you can change the permissions at either the document library level, the folder level, or the individual file level to remove the permissions for that guest. And then depending on which other apps you're using, for example, if it's Power BI, again, you just remove them from the permissions of being able to see that report, which they won't be able to see unless you've got the appropriate licenses anyway. So, you know, off the bat, they could, yes, they can, but you can roll up back in terms of what they can access to by either permissioning those files in SharePoint or in the future with private channels.
Amazing, thank you very much. We have a question from Stephen Richards. Thank you, Stephen.
Non-anonymous.
Non-anonymous.
Thank you, Stephen.
The first one. Our charity relies on Outlook to take email booking requests for our centres and to keep track of them in Canada. We have never been able to share them. We are tethered to the PC in the office, yet we are a small team and are out and about a lot. Without heading down the road or of buying a server, can we share it in SharePoint so we can all keep up to date? Do you want me to read that again?
No, I got it. Don't worry, I've got you. Was it Stephen?
Stephen.
Yeah, okay, Stephen, don't worry. I'm here to help. So within Microsoft Teams, when you create a team, technically behind the scenes, an Office 365 group is created. Now, the main components of an Office 365 group is a shared Office 365 Exchange Online mailbox, which comes with a shared calendar as well. You also get that SharePoint modern team site, as well as a planner plan, and that persisted chat element in Teams. So what you could do is you could create a new Microsoft team with the name of whatever the mailbox is that you're using for that booking system. And then what you'll be able to do is through OWA or Outlook web app, which is just available through the browser or on your mobile device if you want to add it into the Outlook mobile app, you'll be able to access those emails from the shared mailbox as well as the calendar invites on the go. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, I find with adding new people into the team, sometimes they miss schedule meetings as well.
Yeah.
So you can use that group and that SharePoint site set up for that team, and then put in the calendar web part in there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Good shout.
There we go.
Yeah, so you could even render those calendar invites on a page in the modern calendar web part. That's great.
Thanks again. I think we'll have to finish on this question, looking at the time, and I think it's a good one to finish on from George. Is there assistance available to help organisations transition, advice, forums, etc.? We're one of the traditional IT organisations Graham lamented about.
So thanks, George, for a great question to end on. So yes, so if you have a look online and you search Microsoft Fast Track, we have a number of guides as well as white papers and training available to help you specifically with migrating and onboarding to Office 365 as well as Microsoft 365. So not only is there a number of different documents and stuff that you can look at, there will also be contacts there for you to reach out to the Fast Track team if you need support with that journey.
Yeah, also we have a raft of different partners as well out there. Microsoft partners that specialize in doing those migrations. And that whole culture change basically is moving from a traditional IT to online working and working in different ways as well. We have some great YouTube videos and channels that are Microsoft centric, and we also have a charity one as well, I believe. Looking at Eve. No, maybe not then. But we have something called Coffee in the Clouds. If you search that on YouTube, you'll see some hints and tips that are both user centric and IT admin centric as well. So they're another great resource.
What we do have, which is charity specific, is not necessarily our own YouTube channel, but on the microsoft.com/philanthropies website, we do have a few resources on there. The ebook that I mentioned earlier, the white paper, is really useful, but there's also a few pre-recorded webinars, not quite in detail in here, it's a bit more high level, but kind of gives you some insight that can help you from a digital kind of strategy perspective to kind of help you there and their specific charities.
Thank you very much. Sorry to everyone who published a question and we didn't quite get around to it. As we mentioned earlier, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar in an email within a week or so. What we'll do is then take all your questions that we didn't get around to answer and make sure those replies are included in that. So keep your eye on your emails over the next week. But that's all from us here in Reading at Microsoft's office. Huge thank you to Eve, Grace and Graham. Amazing insight into making the most effective use of your cloud technology. I think even for a veteran or a newbie, I think there's a lot people can take away from what we've talked about here today. As I like to say, every day is a school day. And of course, thank you all at home or in your offices for joining us. Next week will be round 2 of our Microsoft Skills series. And we'll be joined by even more amazing people from the Microsoft team as we discuss how technology can make the workplace more accessible, inviting and inclusive for the 1 billion people in the world with disabilities. If you're not signed up already, head over to charitydigitalnews.co.uk webinars and sign up, and we hope to see you there. Thank you all again, and see you next week. Hello everyone. Sorry again we had to cut our Q&A short, but not to worry. We hung around in Reading for a bit with Grace and Graham and managed to get all your questions answered. Before we dig into that bonus content, don't forget to sign up for the rest of the series at charitydigitalnews.co.uk/webinars. Without further ado, here's the added content. Enjoy.
So, good question, because it's quite rare that it happens, but it does happen. So if you cast your minds back in the old version of SharePoint, we had this technique of checking in and checking out files. And if somebody had it checked out and they'd gone away on holiday, then nobody else could edit that file. So those capabilities have nicely gone away, and now we're able to co-author those documents, like I said, up to 99 people at any one time. However, if you're making changes or have made changes offline to the same paragraph as someone else, as soon as you come back online and it detects the conflict, you'll be prompted that you need to go away and make a change. And that could be either viewing what the conflicts are, actually merging those changes, or saving a copy of that file as well.
Yeah. And you can also, if you want to, behind the scenes in SharePoint for either the library or the site, you can still do that enforce check-in and check-out. So if you are, for example, in a position where you don't want to co-author all to yourself, you can still check in and check out files if you want to, but you know, that's the exception. You don't probably need to do that a lot of the time, but if you want to, that's still functionality. Graham's giving me a sad face because he doesn't like not co-authoring, but you know, sometimes if you're working on a document and you do not want anybody else in that, but it is a shared document, you can choose to check it out still.
So if the question is in relation to the live streaming that I talked about, then yes, it is available internationally. So it can be set up with presenters and organizers and producers, much like we're doing today. But you can have up to 10,000 attendees to that broadcast, and they can be anywhere in the globe. So there's actually a 30-second delay between kind of the live feed and what you see from a viewing point of view. And the whole purpose of that is we're actually creating the global network. So even if you hopped over to Australia now and viewed the webcast, you could. It's just setting up that global backbone in order to scale nicely.
So I don't have enough time to run you through in detail all of the things that we have on the roadmap. But if you want to have a look at all of the features which are currently in development and planned, the best place to look is the M365 or the Microsoft 365 roadmap, which is a website. So if you just Bing or Google Microsoft 365 roadmap, it'll have a look. It'll show you all of the different things we've got on the roadmap, not just for Teams, but you can filter to Microsoft Teams and also search if you're looking for a specific feature. I'd also keep an eye on our Microsoft Teams blog. That's where we post bigger articles about large announcements that we make, usually around our big conferences or if we're making changes to the product.
Two key announcements that we just made from Enterprise Connect, I just want to call out because of my favorite ones. Is we've already got the facility to blurb your background on your video, so to stop any distractions behind you, but also we're bringing the capabilities to customize that background as well. And another one, just for last really, is the facility to have data loss prevention in that chat.
Yeah.
So if you're putting in some sensitive information that you shouldn't be, we can automatically remove that as well.
Yeah. Great question. So if you just set it up as how it is by default, then a guest in the SharePoint site can download that file. However, what you can do is if you want to, through conditional access at the tenant level, you can make changes in configuration to turn that off. Or you can make amendments to either that document, the folder, or the library to stop people downloading copies of that, or change the permissions as a whole for either groups of guests, individual users, or for the whole team. For more information, if you have a look at our support.office.com, you'll find out where to make those changes. Fantastic, thanks Jonathan. So with M365, that includes Windows 10 and the latest version of the Windows client. We've also got Office 365, and then you've got the Enterprise Mobility Suite as well. So all three of those work together to bring you kind of the best productivity suite you can. And with the Enterprise Mobility Suite, it gives you that enterprise grade security to be both proactive and reactive in terms of security. I mean, the threat landscape is ever evolving and increasing, so it's important to make sure that you can be as up on that with the Enterprise Mobility Suite tools that we've got. As well as with the latest versions of Windows 10 and Office Pro Plus with Office 365, is you get really the greatest and latest, as Graham said earlier, in terms of feature functionality that we actually develop, build and deploy to you as a customer. So it kind of makes sense to have all three together. So if you're talking about you already have an Office 365 tenant and you're using SharePoint in that tenant, and then you decide to use Teams, those SharePoint sites are still within that tenant. They're still within that SharePoint environment that's within your tenant. Now, if you've got two Office 365 tenants, that's a different matter. So you need to look at guests and how you invite key members of the other organization into your teams to collaborate on SharePoint. And potentially what you also might be looking at is, rather than Office 365 or SharePoint Online and Teams, if you have an existing SharePoint implementation that's on premise, so for example 2019, 2016, 2013, I hope you don't have 2010 or 2007 still, but if that's the case, for those later versions of on-prem SharePoint, you can implement what's called hybrid. And what that does is it acts as that connector between your on-prem environment and your online environment. So if you've got data that needs to stay on premise, or applications that can only work in a SharePoint on-prem installation, you can have them talk together. So you can still use Teams using SharePoint Online, but have the search center, for example, between both SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint Online and Teams using SharePoint Hybrid. So yes, so Azure Information Protection, or AIP, across Office 365, if you've implemented labels, depending on if it's for everybody or just a subset of users, those labels will apply to SharePoint Online content. So OneDrive is your personal cloud storage area. So that's where you would keep documents in the cloud that you own and you work on. Now, you can choose to share those documents in your OneDrive with individuals if you choose to. However, the main thing is it's there for you. They're documents that you own. Whereas if you're working with a group of people and it has shared ownership, hence the SharePoint, that's where your file should go. So SharePoint is your shared cloud storage area for multiple people and multiple ownership, whereas OneDrive is your personal file storage area, where you can choose to share it with individuals that you want, but you still maintain you're the ultimate owner of that document. So by default, it's private.
Yeah, another question I get is, again, what's the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? OneDrive actually backs off to SharePoint as well in the back end. But Grace is right that there's two different use cases for it. Sharing files from either you can do, but equally you can use the OneDrive client, the sync client that sits on your desktop, for example, to not only sync your OneDrive, but also sync file repositories in SharePoint as well. So you could use that to take offline or just choose the files you want to sync to work on the plane.
Yeah, great. Oh, so Graham looks keen to answer this. take it away.
So we talked about the inner and outer loop. Unfortunately, email doesn't go away. You still need to be able to email your customers, but we're using that as more of a personal or one-to-one conversation thread. So what we typically see, obviously migration of email isn't going to happen, but you're migrating those conversations to Teams. And that could be as easy as starting the conversation within those channels, actually mentioning people to draw them into that team and have that adoption of that new way of working. But equally, people who are used to working within email can email directly into the team as well. We understand that there's different people within the workplace that like to work in certain ways, and you can't always necessarily move people away from email necessarily. But even so, just starting your meetings or team meetings within Teams means that they have to go there and have conversations within there and actually view content within that area as well. So if you're finding that after a while people are starting an email thread that should be in Teams, just reply to them saying, I'll reply to you in Teams, or just email that directly into the channel and then start the conversation from there as well. So it's all about user adoption.
Definitely. And we've got some great resources available online to help you, not just with mapping out that technical journey. So we have steps to move distribution lists all the way up to Teams, for example, as well as the more cultural aspect of it. And that's aka.ms/success with Teams. And then in terms of the technical roadmap, as Graham was saying, you can kind of almost force users' hands if you need to. If you're not getting the natural migration or adoption that you want, is you can turn off things in, for example, Skype for Business, or migrate their distribution lists if you want. So for the Skype to Teams migration, again, you can go to aka.ms/success with Teams. Or to have a look at the roadmap for Skype for Business to Teams, it's aka.ms/Skype to Teams roadmap, and that's 2 with a 2 as in the number. Fantastic question. Office 365 Groups is the fundamental technical backbone of Teams. So much like with a square and a rectangle, every team is an Office 365 group, but not every Office 365 group is a team. Okay, so every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square, same sort of thing. So I'm an engineer and a physicist, hence why I like that one. But ultimately, yeah, Office 365 Groups is what underpins Teams. So that's what creates the SharePoint Online team site. It creates the group shared mailbox. It creates the Azure Active Directory group membership. And that's your group. But then when you create the team, you get that plus the Teams chat service and the ability to be able to use that within Teams. Now, if you've already been creating Office 365 groups and you actually want to move them to Teams, you can create teams based on Office 365 groups. And again, to have a look at how to do that, you can have a look at our support website or aka.ms/success with Teams. So actually, when you use Microsoft Teams, you get those things as well. So if the challenge is more about they're used to using just SharePoint and Planner, is actually behind the scenes, they will have an Office 365 group, because when you create a Planner plan, you also create an Office 365 group. So I would really recommend having a look at migrating or kind of bumping up those Office 365 groups and adding in the Teams chat service through the things that are available either within the app to click create team based on group, or using some PowerShell, so that they get to use the full suite in terms of the persistent chat and using the tabs in the channels to add the planner plans, as well as using the SharePoint site to save their files that they communicate with in Teams.
Got a slightly different approach on that question. Talking about different tools and then using that against Teams. So Office 365 as entirety is a bunch of tools that you can use either independently or integrate into Teams. So exactly like Gray said, we could add in a new tab And if there's an Excel spreadsheet that we need to access all the time, or a Power BI dashboard, or a plan that the team needs to find, let's make things easy. So we can integrate not only Microsoft-centric apps, but third-party applications as well, like SurveyMonkey or Jira or Confluence, and have one central place for your entire team to access that information.
Oh, okay. So with the term forum, it is hard to know kind of what you mean. If you mean completely public, that's a bit of a challenge there, because Office 365 isn't built to host public websites. If you're talking about inviting in specific externals as guests, and a forum as in an area where you can collaborate, then if you're trying to work with them and you're in a loop, then you could leverage Teams and invite them in as guests, so you can have that persistent chat as well as app mentions, replying, and SharePoint Online. Whereas if you want to work with them in a more open way, then you could look at adding them in as guests to your Yammer group, for example. So you can have Yammer groups that are externally shared, but again, those have to be named individuals. So with your Office 365 subscriptions, you do get access to Dynamics 365, which allows you to leverage things like Flow, Power Apps, and some of those connectors. But it's not the full Dynamics 365 CRM that you may be used to with the likes of AX and that kind of thing. That does include extra subscription fees. So it depends what you're trying to get out of your CRM. And matching those functionalities against either Dynamics 365, which comes with Office 365 certain licenses like E3 and E5, or having a look at the other additional plans for Dynamics 365 and just finding out what functionality you actually need and whether it's in line with the we call them SKUs that you get for free or as part of your package, I should say, or if you need the additional functionality, what that costs. And usually it's to do with the connectors. So, what are you actually doing? What volumes of data? What other systems do you need to contact through CRM?
I would say if you need more information on that, if you go to aka.ms/nonprofit, then it'll give you a rundown of what's available and what schemes.